The next topic we are going to discuss is how to avoid pomposity or overly fancy language, including language that's not necessarily fancy, but it's overly complicated. And I think this following quote by Steven Pinker shows the importance of this common problem. He says, "The methods section of an experimental paper explains, participants read assertions whose veracity was either affirmed or denied by the subsequent presentation of an assessment word. After some detective work, I determined that it meant participants read sentences, each followed by the word true or false." Now, that second version is much more clear. Assertions is very abstract. It's an abstract noun, but sentences is very concrete. So participants read assertions or participants read sentences. Also, it's veracity. Okay, so veracity is a kind of a pompous word. It's overly fancy. It's not necessary, and not very many people use that word. And affirmed or denied. Why not just say true or false? And the subsequent presentation of an assessment word. So subsequent presentation, assessment, these are all multisyllable words. They decrease readability. And subsequent means something followed. Why not just say followed? That's a common word everyone knows. So let's take a look at a scientific writing example. The CRISPR-Cas system, which has entered the mainstream in recent years and been widely used in humans, animals, microorganisms, and plants, possesses the outstanding advantages of high simplicity and efficiency in contrast to other techniques. All right, so a lot going on there. It's kind of a complicated sentence. It has a lot of phrases. And some of those phrases I feel like are not necessary for the meaning of the sentence. For example, CRISPR-Cas has entered the mainstream in recent years. What does it really mean by mainstream? Does that mean you can go to Target or Walmart or Amazon and buy CRISPR-Cas9 system? No, of course not. It's not mainstream. It's still in the scientific realm in very specialized laboratories. So I don't think that phrase really means anything. But then when we look later in the sentence, after this phrase where it tells where it's been widely used, we get to the phrase that says, possesses the outstanding advantages of high simplicity and efficiency in contrast to other techniques. So here we're getting into some complicated words with a lot of syllables. Possesses, and we have this outstanding as an adjective for advantages. Then we have some abstract nouns like simplicity and efficiency with an adjective high. In most of scientific writing, I really recommend that you avoid adjectives as much as possible and avoid adverbs as much as possible. I'm not saying that you should never use them, just don't use them unless it's absolutely necessary. And so outstanding advantages, this is not really necessary. This is one of those signifiers of mood. So this is the author's opinion that the advantages are outstanding. Let's leave that out. And let's change simplicity and efficiency to simple and efficient. So here's my suggested revision. The CRISPR-Cas9 system, which has been widely used in humans, animals, microorganisms, and plants, is simple and efficient in contrast to other techniques. So I think we've got all the important information retained in that revision. It's quite a bit shorter, and that by itself makes it more readable, but we've also eliminated some of the polysyllable words that also decrease readability. Now I recognize that in my revision I still have something that we're talking about in this lesson, which is a phrase that is between the subject and the verb. But sometimes it's okay to do it if it's a simple phrase that helps to define the subject. Here's another example we can look at for simplifying the language. Adaptation to fluctuations in available nitrate involves multifaceted responses in distinct developmental programs controlling root system architecture, shoot morphology, seed germination, stomatal closure, and flowering time. So I feel like the end of that sentence is fine. I would not recommend changing it. But I think the beginning of it is a little bit overly fancy and overly complicated. We have seen this sentence or part of this sentence in earlier lessons when we were converting abstract nouns to concrete nouns. But I think it illustrates this point also. So what I would recommend doing is changing it to something like this. Plants adapt to fluctuating available nitrate with multiple responses that control root system architecture, etc. So I haven't changed the last part of that sentence. But what I've done is I've added an agent. Plants adapt. So we change adaptation to adapt, we change fluctuations to fluctuating, and the sentence is now less fancy and more direct. I also took out this developmental programs controlling. So really what the authors seem to be getting at is that there are changes in root system architecture, shoot morphology, etc.